Hey everybody, DM Gallibond here. This time on Lore Friday, we continue looking at Chapter 6 from the Out of the Abyss campaign, which focuses on the adventures in the Sverneblin city of Blingdenstone. Now, as with all of the other adventures in Blingdenstone, this particular adventure is keyed for characters that are Tier 2, Level 7. And this time we're going to examine Goldwhisker Warrens, an area of the city that has been home to a community of Sverneblin were-rats ever since the drow invasion that destroyed the city and scattered the population. And of course, Out of the Abyss was published by Wizards of the Coast in September of 2015. So the theme of this particular adventure is one of investigation. At the request of Dorbo and Senny Diggermatic, the PCs are sent into Goldwhisker Warrens to determine if the were-rats there can be trusted and invited to join the ranks of Blingdenstone citizens, or if they are a dangerous threat to the deep gnomes that must be driven out. The setting is the ancient deep gnome city of Blingdenstone, now mostly abandoned except for a few hundred hardy refugees that are trying to reclaim the ruined city after it was plundered by ancient foes. The hook for this particular adventure is that Dorbo and Senny Diggermatic agree on most things, but not when it comes to the were-rat population. Now, Dorbo thinks that the were-rats are a danger, while Senny believes the were-rats, as cursed deep gnomes, deserve the same rights to be part of Blingdenstone as any others for Neblin that have returned to rebuild the city. So the PCs are tasked with trying to figure out which of them has the better right of it. All right. And if you've been watching us this far, thank you so much. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, and click the post notification bell so that you can be notified every time new content goes live. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the summary of this particular adventure. So, the main portal between reclaimed Blingdenstone and the Goldwhisker Warrens is guarded from both sides. The deep gnomes think that the were-rats are monsters, while the were-rats think of themselves as the true rightful residents of Blingdenstone. And why is this? Well, after the drow attack that destroyed the city, not all of the Sverneblin were scattered and fled. Some cleverly hid nearby, eluding the drow for a time, only to fall prey to a pack of were-rats that infected them all with lycanthropy. And these deep gnome were-rats view the deep gnomes that fled as cowards. And now they resent that some Sverneblin have returned and think they can just take over the city without acknowledging those who stayed and have continuously inhabited the place. So once the PCs get into the Goldwhisker Warrens, there's going to be an initial encounter that they will have with some unfriendly were-rats. But after that initial encounter, the were-rats will try to draw the PCs into their town square, where they will meet the leader of the were-rats, a fat deep gnome with rat-like features who calls himself Chipgrin. Now, Chipgrin wants to meet with the Diggermatics to make the case that the were-rats are just as entitled to be Blingdenstone citizens as those without the gift of lycanthropy. And he will tell the PCs that he has knowledge of the individual who is responsible for attracting all of the dangerous oozes to this area. And Chipgrin will tell them that this is a crazy deep gnome, a former taskmaster from one of the mines who now simply calls himself the Pudding King. Now, Chipgrin will not divulge where to find this Pudding King to the PCs. He wants to talk to the Diggermatics in person, and he's going to hold this information back as kind of a bargaining chip to try to get that audience with Senny and Darbo Diggermatic. Now, if the PCs wind up either attacking before they listen, or they botch some rolls and it turns into a combat, Chipgrin has a strategy that he will use and that his were-rat followers will employ if the PCs insist on making it a combat. However, if the PCs don't want to fight, they can exercise their skills of diplomacy and negotiation between the leader of the were-rats and the leaders of the Svirfneblin refugees that are rebuilding Blingdenstone proper. The were-rats have some secret ways in and out of Blingdenstone. And by using these ways, it means they have seen some of the personality changes that have come over certain individuals in the outskirts of the city, such as greed, theft, and anger. Now, those traits are almost unheard of among Svirfneblin. And the were-rats realize it's almost as if something is driving these deep gnomes mad. Now, lycanthropy gives the were-rats immunity to the madness that's being spread by the demon lords, and the were-rats are unaware that the demon lords are in the Underdark. However, this Chipgrin is a very smart deep gnome, and so he can help the PCs connect the dots in a couple of ways. Number one, if the PCs have somehow managed to not find any evidence that the demon lords are in the Underdark, but they have seen potential signs of madness not only here in the city of Blingdenstone, but perhaps also in Gracklestug and maybe even in the Kuatoa city, Slubladoop, then Chipgrin can sort of help to realize that there's a similar force that's causing this madness, spreading it everywhere in the Underdark. So the PC should start to look for some sort of common entity or set of entities that may be responsible for this madness. Now, on the other hand, if the PCs have seen evidence of the demon lords, but they have not yet connected the demon lords to the madness, then Chipgrin can sort of help to make that connection for them. He can observe, or he can help to, by asking questions, he can help to guide them to the realization that, hey, everywhere you've seen evidence of these demon lords, there's also madness spreading in the Underdark. So if you do something about the demon lords, you'll probably do something about the madness. So that is a nice little thing that can come out of this particular adventure in terms of how it relates to the overall campaign. The most common enemies that you're going to find in this particular adventure are Svirfneblin were-rats, which are CR2 monsters. And the toughest potential encounter, if the PCs decide they're going to try to pick a fight with Chipgrin, they're going to find themselves facing a pack of 40 Svirfneblin were-rats, along with some giant rats. And this is a fight that will almost certainly result in all of the PCs being infected with lycanthropy. Special creatures or items. Now, this particular campaign introduces a new subspecies of were-rat, which is the Svirfneblin were-rat. Mechanically, these monsters are almost exactly the same as normal were-rats, except that there are a few features that are added onto their template from deep gnomes. So I'm not going to go into all those details, but within the campaign, you will find the deep gnome were-rats are almost like regular were-rats, but with a little bit of Svirfneblin flavoring thrown in. Now, my favorite element of the adventure is that this particular neighborhood of Blingdenstone is a great example of a population that has modified their environment to suit themselves. At the beginning of this particular adventure, there are several personality traits of the population of were-rats that are specified. And the environment reflects how the were-rats have cunningly and carefully constructed their public spaces and their private residences to reflect the peculiar nature of their race. Now, what does this mean for us as DMs? Well, if we want to be inspired by this in our own homebrew campaign, If you think of a warren or a neighborhood of a city, and you want that city to reflect the type of people that live there, like maybe you have the Kuotoa quarter in your city, or you have the Dark Elf quarter in your city, or you have the Halfling quarter in your city. Well, think about what characteristics and what qualities the race has, and then put these little touches into that area and have, as the PCs go along, have it be something that if the players are really attentive, they'll pick up on these little details and they'll realize, oh yeah, when I see stuff like this, it does remind me of gnomes, or it reminds me of halflings, or it reminds me of dark elves, or whatever it is. So that's a really cool kind of way that they have incorporated this little quarter or neighborhood or warren of Blingdenstone, and shaped it around the fact that it's inhabited by were-rats. One thing we're going to do here when we talk about homebrew adaptations for this, I'm going to go through a number of homebrew adaptations. This adventure can be adapted for use in many different ways, but I'm going to discuss 6 of them here. And you can probably think of many more as I rattle these off. All right, so number 1, if you need a were-rat warren in a city of your homebrew campaign, you can just use this map of Goldwhisker Warrens just as it's written. Number 2, this map could be used as a set of tunnels in an abandoned mine that has been overrun either by were-rats or by some other kind of monsters. Again, if you put were-rats in there, you don't have to make many changes. If you put other monsters in, you might want to think about tailoring it to what would reflect those new inhabitants. Number 3, you could replace the denizens of this area with captives of mind flayers or some other slave race, and turn each of the chambers into a prison cell or an evil laboratory where the captors do terrible experiments on their captives. And that might be kind of fun as a DM to figure out, well, in this one, this is going to be used as a lab. Well, what kind of experiments would they do? What is the nature of this slave race? What kind of things might they do to their slaves in that particular chamber there? Now, number 4, riffing on the tendency of were-rats to fill their lairs with traps, this particular area could be a set of chambers that is part of the lair of an obsessive compulsive dragon. So just imagine each chamber holding a combination of deadly traps and themed treasures that the dragon has obsessively sorted and cataloged. And it might be a dragon that's an ally of the party. It might be a dragon that is an enemy of the party. It might be a dragon's lair that the party has to try to sneak into and steal a particular object. And they would have to then figure out which chamber that object is most likely to be sorted in if they know that this particular dragon has this obsessive compulsive personality trait. All right, number 5, you could turn this area into a large clan of halfling homes with elaborate furnishings in each of the individual dwellings. Now, the larger public spaces might be carved out of the same small mountain or large hill so that all the families in the clan are able to live and socialize out of the way of clumsy big folk, as J.R.R. Tolkien always said about humans. And last but not least, number 6, this area could be a catacombs for the ancient dead under a city in your homebrew campaign. Now, looking at each of those individual chambers, maybe those are family burial crypts, or those are burial crypts for the bones of different kinds of denizens in your city. If it's a big metropolis of a city, then maybe all the half-elves are in one chamber, all of the elves are in another, all of the dwarves are in another, something like that. And perhaps it's a place where it has like ossuaries, where they just take the bones and they put all the bones in little casks or objects or something like that. So those are some possibilities. Those are 6 different possibilities for homebrew adaptation. Like I said, you can probably consider many other different adaptations. So go ahead and think of what you will. And if you think of something else, it'd be cool if you put that down in the comments below. All right. You can use this with just about any old edition of D&D because lycanthropes have been around since the days of basic D&D. So this would work with any old edition of the game. And last but not least, if you've been watching this far, thank you once again. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, and click the post notification bell so that you can get notified every time new content goes live. Next time, we're going to continue looking at the adventures from Blingdenstone in the Out of the Abyss campaign. And next time, we will be focusing on the Pudding Court. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. I have been DM Gallibond. This has been Lore Friday. Take care, everybody. Good night.